I've been in crypto a long time, and I've been involved or on the front lines of almost every major crypto story, from the Mt. Gox hack to the Bitcoin cash fork to FTX and everything in between. And it's important to understand one thing. I was close to the story, as we'll talk about. I talked to people who worked at FTX, people who had meetings with major players about things from philanthropy to the architecture of the back end of the exchange. Back in 2022, I was the only one close to the story telling the truth about what happened. And this is not an I told you so video. This is the summation of how I knew. Let's get it. I'm not a financial advisor. Welcome to BitBoy Crypto. Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, BitBoy, and today we're getting deep. If you want your political, financial, and historical IQs to increase, watch this entire video. And make sure to smash that like button if that sounds good. Now, if you've been watching for a while, then you probably remember my adventures in November 2022 and December 2022 in the Bahamas, where I chased down Sam Bankman-Fried after the collapse of FTX. There were months of investigation leading up to that moment that gave me a ton of insight and background knowledge into what was actually happening at the exchange. When my beef with SBF started, I called him the devil, and I believed he was a criminal mastermind. But as I dug deeper into the case, I saw that he was actually just a fall guy. He was definitely a criminal, no questions there, but he wasn't the only person at FTX who was stealing money. And a lot of the really shady ideas were coming from other people on the team who seemed to be getting away without any consequences. That's all starting to change. Now, Sam Bankman-Fried's parents, Joseph Bankman and Barbara Fried, are finally starting to face some legal scrutiny. Ever since that week in the Bahamas, I've been saying that Sam's parents were actually the puppet masters pulling the strings behind the scenes the whole time. Check out this clip from an interview that was recorded at Decentraland in Miami right after I returned home from the trip. I think I know more about what was happening at FTX and Alameda than Sam Bankman-Fried.
Yeah.
Mom, Dad,
Yep.
Alan Joseph Bankman, Barbara Fried.
Yeah.
We call them the puppet masters. They were pulling the strings behind the scenes. When you see all this news coverage about these puff pieces, New York Times, this is coming from them. If you saw one of the statements that Sam put out, it used double spaces between the periods.
Yeah.
Sam doesn't talk like that. He's never written that way. The architect is Dan Friedberg, the former general counsel for FTX, who also ran the Ultimate Bet poker scandal, the greatest poker scandal in history. And I was speaking with some people last night. There's very interesting conversations about where all this is going. And when you compare the Ultimate Bet scandal to what's going on here, the big difference is what really happened with Ultimate Bet didn't come out until like 7 years later when these audio got released.
All of this is wide
We
open.
have it all in I have it all in real time. I have all the all the audio tapes, all the videos, emails, text messages. This is all coming out in real time. I think within 1 year from now, the Joe Bankman and Barbara Fried, along with Dan Friedberg, they're going to be totally exposed as the architects of this entire. There were other players as well, like Dan Friedberg, who set up the God mode feature that allowed FTX and Alameda to trade against its users without fear of being liquidated and with full knowledge of everyone else's positions. This was a similar design to the one used at the scam poker website Ultimate Bet, where he worked before FTX. Then there was Sam Trabucco, who was in charge of strong-arming and sabotaging competing projects. Each of them managed to escape any consequences, probably because they gave testimony or evidence against Sam, either officially or unofficially. So it was definitely a team effort, but his parents and his brother Gabriel, well, they were in charge of the political connections. And until recently, it looked like they were gonna get away with it too. The Wall Street Journal recently reported that SBF family was managing over $100 million in political donations, and all of it was stolen from FTX users. When I was down in the Bahamas, I recorded this short video when I learned that there was $125 million that was recorded in property expenses for properties that were actually being rented by Sam's parents. All right, guys, we are here at One Cable Beach. Now, there was a Washington Post article that said that Sam Bankman-Fried's parents owned a property here. We just got some really interesting information since we've been here. Someone came out and started talking to us. Apparently, there was one unit at One Cable Beach that they rented. They didn't even buy it. So there's a lot of discrepancies on this real estate that they own, and they've done it with some shell companies and stuff like that, so it's hard to really know what they have. We've been told they did not have a whole floor, they did not have a penthouse, they had one unit here, and we're still trying to figure out where is this $121 million worth of real estate that they have. Emails that were recently uncovered showed that SBF's father, Joe Bankman, was directly responsible for the fund. Sam's mother, Barbara Fried, and his brother, Gabriel, are also being accused of diverting customer funds to their foundations, which is something that I covered extensively in my book, Catching Up to FTX. I actually originally called this chapter the Bankman-Fried crime family, but the fact checkers at the publisher who stole my money made me change it because I couldn't go after the entire family like that until charges were brought against the rest of them. They made me change it. Now that chapter is called SBF, the man behind the myth, but it gives some background to the family, how they operate. Now publishers don't want to make these people mad. Sam's parents are both public academics with connections in politics. His father, Joseph Bankman, is a professor of law at Stanford University. His mother, Barbara Fried, also worked as a professor of law at Stanford, and she also co-founded a Democratic super PAC called Mind the Gap. This is the foundation that she's accused of sending of FTX customer funds to. The couple was very popular in academic circle and often hosted dinners for prominent figures on campus. Sam's younger brother, Gabriel, was also following a similar path in politics and also played a role in the political donations made with FTX money. He founded a lobbying organization called Guarding Against Pandemics, which worked closely with SBF and FTX to funnel money to politicians. The name made it seem like they were funding medical research or something, but really they were just giving money to politicians because they know that Washington runs on bribes. Oddly enough, an increase in the income tax was the main policy that they were pushing for. So it seemed like they were just slapping the pandemic label on the organization because that was trendy at the time. It's obvious that this was more about bribing politicians than anything to do with charity because of how the money was spent. The group also spent $3.3 million on a townhouse near Capitol Hill in DC so they could hold receptions for politicians, their staffers, members of both political parties, and who knows, maybe swingers. This is what I was starting to cover when I was on location in the Bahamas. Because there's a reason why they feel safe enough to where they can just call security and try to get us kicked out. It's unbelievable. When you've got as much political power as Barbara and Joe have, and you guys make connections as you have, and you're used to doing whatever you want to do your entire life, being a securities lawyer, coming up with $121 million for real estate, as professors and security lawyers, it's very apparent what's going on here. And their scam is up. Their jig is up. People know this at this point. Not the swinging part, but maybe. The Bankman-Fried sons were following in their parents' footsteps in the family business of lobbying. And you should try loitering, it's more fun. SBF and his brother Gabriel grew up watching their parents use philanthropy to build their influence and wealth, instead of watching Saturday morning cartoons. Depending on what your perspective is, this might seem like a very positive thing, but I don't really think it is. Don't get me wrong, charity and helping people in need is necessary for a good soul in a civilized society. But the majority of what we call philanthropy is a scam. John D., that other feller, and the first billionaires of America started facing a lot of backlash from the public because of the massive wealth gap that was forming in the economy. So what did they do? They reinvented their images using philanthropy. That other feller was one of the first to do this. He began hiring public relations experts to help him clean up his image. One of the moves the other feller made to win over the public was giving away a lot of his money to foundations. He even made sure to have himself filmed in public handing out dimes to poor children to make himself look charitable instead of greedy. I know I saw that TikTok once. It's not just about public image though. All of these charitable donations are also tax write-offs, and they help many billionaires get away with paying almost no taxes. We have a whole video coming out on this topic soon, so stay tuned. But the problems for Sam's parents began when what remains of FTX filed a lawsuit against them, which included accusations that they were deeply involved with the fraud taking place at the company, and even held management roles there. During his time with the company, Bankman is accused of funneling millions of dollars in cash and property out of the company. He even pushed his way into the Super Bowl FTX commercial with Larry David, appearing as an 18th century lawyer wearing a silver wig. He just had to dye the hair, that was it.
No king! Gentlemen, have you taken leave of your senses?
The people shall have the right to vote.
Even the stupid ones?
Yes!
Stupid people vote?
Yes!
There's also a paper trail connecting Joe Bankman to both FTX and Alameda. Here's what the lawsuit says. He entered into an agreement to provide legal services to FTX Trading, Alameda LTD, and WRS, and each of their subsidiaries and affiliates regarding general corporate and tax matters on a pro bono basis. Bankman-Fried signed the agreement on behalf of the entities. He also had a contract with FTX where he was listed as an employee with the role of senior advisor to the FTX Foundation. Initially, the salary that Joe Bankman was supposed to get was $200,000 per year plus bonuses. But he complained that it wasn't enough. Maybe he should have tried $220,000, Josh. And that he should have been getting $1 million salary every year. He complained to Sam's mom, and the problem was apparently fixed right away. But Joe got a lot more than $1 million in salary. After that, the Bankman-Fried family started getting multi-million-dollar properties as gifts from the exchange. I wonder if they came in a box with a bow. They also had a company credit card they used for expensive luxury items. Things are already looking bad for Joe Bankman, but it gets much worse. We now have records of conversations between Bankman and Dan Friedberg where they talked about structuring the company in a way where assets could be protected from bankruptcy. Bankman told Friedman that it would be great, all else equal, if we could have the founders put money into property in the Bahamas. The news floated around for a while and the lawsuit is still pending, but now it's starting to look like Sam's parents could be looking at criminal charges. David Mason, former chairman of the Federal Election Commission, said that the evidence that was recently released shows that Bankman knowingly took part in an illegal straw donor scheme at FTX. A straw donor scheme is where someone transfers money to a shell company, which is then used to make political donations. Basically, intentionally covering up a paper trail. It happens, doesn't it? In one of the final chapters of my book, Catching Up to FTX, I talked about how I thought Sam's parents were the masterminds behind the scenes. From the book, we want Sam to be a pure villain, a bad person, wretched, but somewhere deep down within him was a kind person, at least to the outer world. Once again, this backs up my belief that while Sam has a dark side, no doubt, his parents and Dan Friedberg were the architects and puppet masters of the entire scam, possibly even convincing Sam at times he was doing the right thing. Certainly Sam played into the delusion with his fake altruism first persona, but somewhere deep under the surface was a person capable of being kind. We all make our own choices in life, and we should be held accountable for those choices. Sam is no different, but there is no way he acted alone, and he was playing in a system that encourages the type of behavior that he is now famous for. That's a great line. What do you think? How much did Sam's parents know? Tell me your theory down below in the comments, and don't forget to click the like button on your way out. That's all I got. Be blessed. Boy out.